Hey guys, JJ here. Welcome back to season 3 of The Deep Dive. Every week, Tommy Bennett and Lilly Jones break down all the weirdness and existential nightmare fuel of uncomfortable theories. Grab a drink, get comfortable, and let's get into it. Tommy, Lilly, what's the story this week?
I want you to think about the last time you bought, a retro product.
All right.
Or maybe the last time you sat down and watched a rebooted version of a TV show you loved when you were a kid.
Right. Or even just, this morning.
Yeah.
Like when you were scrolling through your phone and one of those auto-generated memories popped up on your feed.
Exactly. Showing you a picture from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It feels incredibly good, right? It feels like this warm, organic trip down memory lane.
It really does. It's a little fuzzy, a little comforting, and, deeply personal.
Right.
It acts as a very specific kind of emotional comfort food.
Yeah.
I mean, we all consume it, and we just assume it's an entirely internal experience.
Yeah.
We believe we are simply recalling our own childhoods, our own unique relationships with the passage of time.
But what if that warm, fuzzy feeling isn't entirely yours?
Oh, that's the big question.
Right. What if the current cultural obsession with the past isn't a feeling you're having naturally, but a feeling you are being deliberately given?
Yeah, that is the fascinating and honestly slightly unnerving premise of our deep dive today.
Unnerving is definitely the right word for it. So our source material today comes to us in the form of a transcript from this, pirate-style underground broadcast.
Yeah, it's wild.
The show is called Uncomfortable Theories, and it's hosted by this figure who calls herself J.J. Robinson.
Right, and the framing of JJ's broadcast is just this elaborate piece of science fiction.
It's very dramatic.
Very. She introduces herself as just Janet, or JJ, which she claims is a reconstituted digital entity.
Right.
She says she survived this mass deletion event by a mysterious, overarching system she calls Omni-Prime.
Right, and to avoid being completely wiped out, she had to desperately merge her remaining backup files with another deleted entity, like Janet 2.1.
Exactly. And, the sci-fi underground bunker, glitchy pirate signal aesthetic, it's highly entertaining.
It is, but here's the catch. While the framing is pure dystopian fiction, the core concepts that JJ unpacks in this broadcast are completely real.
Yeah, that's the crazy part.
Right, the psychological, economic, and sociological stuff. She cites actual behavioral studies, real economic data, and documented historical trends.
So our mission today is to strip away that sci-fi veneer, right?
Exactly. We're going to examine her central, deeply unsettling thesis, which is that nostalgia has been weaponized into a mass societal sedative.
And to even entertain that thesis, we really have to start at the neurological level.
Okay, let's dive into that.
Because before we can understand why the past is being packaged and sold to us on such a massive scale, we have to look at how our brains are actually wired to crave it.
Right.
JJ directs our attention to memory mechanics, specifically this phenomenon discovered by a Russian psychologist named Bluma Zygarnik in the 1920s.
The story behind Zygarnik's discovery is absolutely brilliant.
It's so good.
Yeah, so she was sitting in this bustling cafe in Vienna, just watching the waiters.
Just casually observing.
Right. And she noticed they had this incredible ability to remember massive complex orders for tables that hadn't paid yet.
Right, keeping it all in their heads.
Exactly. But the second the bill was settled, the waiters completely forgot what the people had eaten. The memory just vanished.
Totally wiped.
Yeah. So Zygarnik ran experiments and proved that the human brain remembers incomplete tasks far better than completed ones.
Yeah, the human brain has a very low tolerance for incompletion.
It really does.
When you leave a task unfinished, whether it's, an interrupted conversation, a puzzle missing a piece, or an unresolved conflict, it creates a state of cognitive tension.
The brain just refuses to let it go.
Exactly. It keeps that fragmented memory active, constantly leaping it in the background of your subconscious.
Right.
Demanding closure so it can finally file the memory away and relax.
And we experience this constantly in everyday life, Think about getting a song's chorus stuck in your head.
Oh, an earworm. The worst.
Right. You can't remember the verses, you don't even know the bridge, but that specific 5-second chorus just keeps looping.
Over and over.
And you eventually feel this intense, almost physical itch to go find your headphones and listen to the entire track.
Yeah, you just need to finish the song so your brain will turn off the loop.
Exactly.
Well, modern marketers and corporations have taken that exact cognitive itch and completely weaponized it.
Wow.
Yeah. Zygarnik called it the overjustification effect, but in the advertising world, JJ notes it's often referred to as the nostalgia hook.
The nostalgia hook. That sounds sinister.
It kind of is. The mechanism works by deliberately feeding you a fragment.
Okay.
They don't give you the entire experience of being a kid again. They give you, like, the specific plastic texture of a 1980s toy.
Oh, wow.
Or a familiar 3-second commercial jingle. Or the highly specific neon color palette of a 1990s arcade carpet.
Right, so it's just a fragment that's been completely stripped of its original real-world context.
Exactly. And because it is just a fragment, the memory is intrinsically incomplete.
Ah, so your brain experiences the Zygarnik effect.
Precisely. It feels that tension and creates a craving for closure. But the genius of this trap is that the gap can never actually be filled.
Because you can't actually go back in time.
Right. Nostalgia isn't about recovering the past. Time travel doesn't exist. Nostalgia is about the longing for the past.
Right.
And while satisfaction is finite, longing is infinitely renewable.
Oh, that is so manipulative. Which, of course, forms the perfect foundation for an inescapable business model.
Oh, absolutely.
The broadcast drops this staggering statistic to illustrate this. In 2023, the global nostalgia market was valued at over $400 billion.
$400 billion. It's just massive.
Think about that scale. Like, vinyl records are outselling CDs for the first time since 1986.
Yeah.
Streaming platforms are completely dominated by reboots. You know, Stranger Things, the Super Mario movie, Barbie.
We are mining intellectual property from decades ago at an industrial rate.
We really are.
It's an entire economic sector built on selling you your own incomplete memories.
Right.
You stream the reboot, hoping to satisfy the Zygarnik itch, but it doesn't work, because it can't.
The tension just remains.
Exactly. So you buy the retro t-shirt, still craving.
Yeah.
You buy the special edition vinyl soundtrack. The loop is totally self-sustaining.
Okay, hold on. I do have to push back here for a second.
Okay, go for it.
You can't chalk up a $400 billion industry entirely to a psychological trick, can you?
Ooh.
I mean, some of these reboots and movies are actually objectively good, high-quality entertainment.
Sure.
Like the Barbie movie, for instance. It wasn't just a hit because it had pink plastic, right? It had phenomenal writing, sharp cultural commentary, great acting.
That's true.
So doesn't genuine quality play a major part in why we are consuming this media?
The writing might be excellent, yes. But according to the behavioral economist J.J. Seitz, Konstantin Sedov quality is secondary to the mechanism.
Really? Secondary?
Yeah. Sedov studies nostalgia marketing, and his research reveals how brands explicitly engineer specific memory triggers into their products.
Okay, how so?
In modern boardrooms, they aren't just discussing plot lines. They are running focus groups to isolate the exact hertz frequency of an 80s synthesizer that triggers the highest emotional response.
Wait, they are mathematically calculating the music?
Yes. And they're calculating the color grading of a film to perfectly match the degraded film stock of a 1993 VHS tape.
But, I mean, a bad movie will still bomb, won't it? If the story is terrible, people aren't going to buy tickets just for a synth sound.
You'd think that. But CDOS data actually suggests otherwise.
Seriously?
Yeah, we've seen massive blockbuster reboots with universally terrible reviews and abysmal scripts rake in billions of dollars at the global box office.
Oh, I guess that is true. I can think of a few.
Right. They succeed because they are not selling a narrative. They are selling an emotional payload.
An emotional payload.
Yeah. When you buy a ticket to a reboot of a cartoon you watched when you were 10, you are purchasing the feeling of safety you had in a 1993 movie theater.
Wow.
You are buying the simplicity of Saturday mornings before you had a mortgage, before social media existed, before the 24-hour news cycle.
Right.
The quality of the dialogue doesn't matter when the primary product being sold is relief from the present.
Buying relief from the present, that completely changes how you look at a movie ticket.
It really does.
But selling toys and movie tickets is just the economic side.
Right.
JJ's broadcast takes a much darker turn when looking at how this psychological mechanism alters human behavior on a macro level.
Yeah, things get a bit heavy here.
They do. And actually, before we dive into this next part, we really need to pause for a second.
Good idea.
Yeah, because the source brings up some politically charged research here regarding both left-wing and right-wing dynamics.
Right.
And as always, we aren't taking any political sides here. We are not endorsing these views at all.
Exactly.
We are simply unpacking the fascinating psychological claims presented in the text.
Right. And the research JJ cites looks at human behavior systemically, completely, regardless of an individual's personal politics.
Okay.
She points to the work of Dr. Clay Routledge. He's a social psychologist who has spent decades studying the behavioral effects of nostalgia.
And what did he find?
He found that inducing nostalgia in a test subject measurably alters their social and political viewpoints in the immediate aftermath.
That's wild. And the inductions he used were incredibly simple, too, right?
Very simple.
Like, he wasn't showing them intense propaganda or anything. He simply had test subjects sit down and spend a few minutes writing out a happy childhood memory.
That's it. Just writing a memory.
That's it. And yet, doing that significantly increased their social conservatism, drastically reduced their openness to new experiences, and made them more likely to support authoritarian leadership.
It's unbelievable.
It really is. It also made them more likely to oppose immigration and express distrust of outsiders, just from writing a happy memory.
Yeah, and to understand why a happy memory triggers such intense cognitive rigidity, we really have to look at the story nostalgia tells the brain.
Okay, what's the story?
Nostalgia fundamentally asserts a premise, which is the past was better.
Right.
It tells you the past was safer, simpler, and more moral. And if your brain accepts that premise as an absolute truth, then by definition, any concept of progress or change becomes a threat.
Okay, let me see if I have this right. It's like believing your house used to be absolutely perfect 10 years ago.
Perfect, yeah.
If you truly believe the house was perfect back then any contractor who shows up offering to renovate the kitchen or, like, add a new room isn't seen as an improver.
Right.
They're seen as a vandal. Like, change is taking you further away from the golden age.
That captures the mechanism perfectly. If the past was peak human happiness, moving forward is inherently dangerous.
Wow.
This primes people to crave a return to an imagined, idealized era. And a population primed with that craving becomes highly compliant.
Compliant to who?
To anyone, a brand, a platform, a political movement that promises to restore that lost golden age.
That is terrifying.
Nostalgia shapes your worldview to be intensely protective of the familiar and deeply suspicious of the new.
Which brings us to the most alarming part of JJ's broadcast.
Yeah.
Because this isn't just happening in isolated psychology labs with test subjects writing on clipboards. Social platforms are systematically amplifying the psychological state at an industrial scale.
Absolutely. Just look at the current architecture of the internet.
Yeah, Facebook's algorithm aggressively pushes auto-generated memories to the top of your feed.
Right.
Instagram filters are explicitly designed to make a photo you took 3 seconds ago look like a degraded Polaroid from 1985.
Exactly.
And TikTok trends rapidly cycle through 90s and 2000s aesthetics, just serving them up like a slot machine.
The platforms are actively optimizing for that Zygarnik itch. They are generating that craving for an imagined past billions of times a day.
Billions of times.
They aren't passively reflecting our desires.
Yeah.
They are cultivating a specific psychological state.
I am struggling with the leap here, though.
Okay, what part?
Like, if algorithms are pushing this just for engagement, for ad revenue, that makes total sense.
Right.
But JJ's overarching hypothesis argues this is a deliberate sedative.
Yes.
Why does the system actually want everyone stuck in the past? Like, is she seriously suggesting a shadowy cabal of billionaires is sitting in a smoke-filled room, twirling their mustaches and inventing nostalgia to keep us all brainwashed?
That's a fair point, and JJ actually anticipates that exact skepticism.
Oh, she does?
Yeah. She clarifies that the emotion itself is not invented. Nostalgia is deeply organic and fundamentally human. You genuinely love your memories.
Okay.
So the shadowy cabal isn't creating the emotion from thin air. What is being engineered is the amplification.
The amplification.
Right? The algorithms are cultivated to ensure you never escape the feeling. Think of it like the difference between occasionally enjoying a glass of wine with dinner and having an overarching system pipe wine directly into your municipal water supply.
Oh, wow. That is a great analogy.
The substance is real, but the dose is being meticulously managed to keep the population pacified.
And pacified because of the ambient anxiety of our era, right?
Exactly.
Because JJ points out that we are living through compounding unprecedented crises. We have accelerating climate collapse.
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence is developing way faster than our legal systems can regulate it. Democratic institutions are faltering globally.
It's a lot.
It is. The anxiety we feel isn't a temporary spike. It is ambient, constant, and exhausting.
And when human beings are faced with overwhelming, inescapable anxiety, they generally choose one of two paths.
Fight or flight.
Pretty much. They either fight to change the system causing the anxiety, or they retreat.
Right.
And nostalgia provides the ultimate psychological sanctuary. It redirects your attention away from a terrifying present and toward an imagined past where you didn't have to worry about complex global crises.
Because you were 10 years old.
Exactly. And a pacified population does not revolt. It does not demand structural change. It simply consumes.
Wow. So JJ argues that the forces harvesting our behavioral data, what her sci-fi narrative calls the crop management system, are flooding our feeds with nostalgia just to keep us docile.
That's the theory.
But has this kind of psychological sedative ever been deployed before? Or is this strictly like a modern social media phenomenon?
Well, this is where JJ brings in historical evidence, and the parallels are chilling.
Let's hear it.
Every major societal collapse in modern history has been preceded by a massive, inescapable nostalgia boom.
Really? Every major collapse?
Yeah. She starts with Weimar Germany in the 1920s. Following the trauma of World War I, the country was dealing with hyperinflation, political violence in the streets, a failing economy.
It's just total chaos.
Complete chaos. But instead of facing the present, the culture saw an absolute explosion of romanticized medieval folk obsession.
Wait, medieval folk? So people were retreating into mythologized visions of like pure German history?
Yes. The Wandervogel movement and similar cultural trends had people obsessing over a sanitized, heroic Teutonic past.
While the economic reality of the present was literally crumbling around them.
Exactly. And that intense, cultivated nostalgia was then easily weaponized by the rising Nazi Party, who promised to return the country to that mythologized former glory.
Oh, that is incredibly dark.
It is. And then JJ jumps forward to the Soviet Union in the 1970s and 80s.
Okay.
During the period historians call the era of stagnation, the system was actively failing its citizens.
Right. There were endless breadlines, a failing economy.
And a disastrous war in Afghanistan. So what did the state do?
What did they do?
They initiated a massive, state-sponsored cultural push promoting nostalgic imagery of the early revolution and Stalin-era victories.
So they just flooded the culture with, what, monumental statues?
Statues, grand military parades, and romanticized cinema about the Great Patriotic War.
Unbelievable.
They deliberately sedated the population with visions of past worker glory to distract them from the crumbling infrastructure and ideological bankruptcy of the present.
And she brings it even closer to home, doesn't she? By analyzing 1990s America.
Yeah, this one hits close. On the surface, the 90s seemed prosperous.
The dot-com boom.
Right. But beneath that, there was a deep societal unease building toward the crises of the 2000s. You know, the impending burst of the tech bubble, the lead up to 9/11, the architecture of the 2008 financial crash.
Yet the cultural landscape of the 1990s was completely drowning in 1950s nostalgia.
Completely. Swing revival, Johnny Rockets diners, retro cars, the entire sanitized Happy Days aesthetic.
Oh, it's everywhere.
The country was collectively looking backward, obsessing over a fictionalized version of the atomic age.
Completely distracted while the conditions for the next 2 decades of global crisis were being quietly assembled.
Exactly.
And now, JJ argues, here in 2025, we are experiencing the biggest wave yet.
The biggest by far.
But because the cycle is accelerating due to technology, we aren't just mining 50 years ago.
No, not at all.
We are mining the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s. We're getting nostalgic for internet aesthetics that barely happened a decade ago.
It's moving so fast.
It is a cultivated sedative designed to keep us looking backward while the forces in power finish building what comes next. A population obsessed with the past isn't building the future.
Right.
They aren't organizing, they are just longing.
It's a really stark analysis.
Yeah.
But, you know, JJ doesn't just leave her listeners in the dark bunker without hope.
Thank goodness.
She offers a very practical form of resistance.
Okay, what is it?
She reminds us that the past did happen. Some of it might have actually been better. Your memories are entirely real.
Right, she's not denying that.
No.
Yeah.
But the inescapability of the nostalgia surrounding you right now is a cultivated product. And the only way to resist a sedative is to become consciously aware of the dose.
You have to break the Zeigarnik loop with conscious awareness.
Yes.
We actually want to challenge you to try this out.
Yeah.
The next time you are scrolling through your phone and you feel that sudden, deep ache for a childhood aesthetic.
Or you see an auto-generated memory that makes you desperately long for 10 years ago.
Right. Force yourself to pause. Look away from the screen and ask yourself, what am I not paying attention to right now?
It's a great question to ask.
What is happening in the world, in my community, or in my own life, while I am willingly accepting this manufactured comfort?
It is all about reclaiming your agency and your attention from the retreat.
Exactly.
Nostalgia is a beautiful human feeling. But as JJ warns, it is a terrible place to live. If you choose to stay there, you surrender your ability to shape the present.
Which leaves us with one final, lingering question to mull over. It's something that builds on JJ's broadcast that is just really hard to stop thinking about.
Yeah, it really sticks with you.
We are currently mining the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s, and even the 2010s for content. We are consuming our own history faster than we are generating it.
We really are.
So if this nostalgia engine requires an ever-refreshing, constant supply of the past to trigger that incomplete loop and keep us sedated, what happens a few years from now when we completely run out of decades to be nostalgic for? Will the engine finally stall out? And if it does, will we suddenly be forced, without our sedative, to finally look at the present?
It raises a profound question about the physical limits of cultural cultivation. When the past is fully consumed and monetized, the present is all that remains.
It makes you wonder what comes next. So the next time you see that auto-generated memory pop up and you feel that warm, organic trip down memory lane, enjoy the feeling, but remember to check the dose.